Welcome to Marketing Tales with Chris Raposo, a podcast created to spotlight and highlight marketers, tell their stories, and share their knowledge with those interested in all things marketing. If you're interested in more than just the cut and dry strategies and tactics and want to learn more about the human side of his guests and how they got to where they are today, then this show is for you.
So we talked about the importance of peer validation. How important is client feedback in the chamber submissions process, and how does chambers effectively collect and incorporate this feedback in their research?
Client feedback is very important. If you're trying to obtain a ranking for the first time, it's even more important because, the volume of submissions information that Chambers receives these days is very high. So I used to research, for example, corporate M&A in one of the largest jurisdictions that Chambers has, and we would receive like 250 submissions for, 40, 50 ranked law firms. So it was virtually impossible for me to analyze 250 submissions. The first cutoff point is, having good referees talking about you. That's kind of the way that Chambers will light a green light and then say, oh, this is an interesting law firm, let's look at their submission.
Hello and welcome everyone to another episode of the Marketing Tales show with Chris Raposo. Today I have the honor to welcome Marco Guasti coming to you from London, England. Marco, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chris. It's lovely to be here.
Awesome. So Marco, I always do my research on my guests on LinkedIn, and I saw that you're very well educated. You have a Master's of Law from the University College in London, and you also have a Master's of Philosophy from Kingston University in London. And you've worked in the legal sector for over 10 years in various positions, and you recently founded Harpa Legal Marketing in the summer of 2021 during the height of COVID. What made you decide to get into legal marketing and open your own agency?
Good question. So, to be perfectly honest, I went to the UK for the first time to study international law. And then I was looking for a job after that. So I was hired by Chambers and Partners. And I worked there for about 2 years, first doing all their rankings for Europe, Latin America, a little bit of the US. And then also did their conferences. I was their conference producer for a while. So that was very interesting. I got to network a lot, etc. And then I realized there was a gap in the market, a way to assist law firms to understand a bit better, how the legal rankings work, how can they improve their rankings, how to assist them throughout the process, etc. So I teamed up with a former partner who also used to work at Chambers. We built our company and it started doing very well. And then she left to go work for a law firm. So then I kind of started running the company by myself.
Okay, awesome. Tell us a little bit about Harpa Legal Marketing and what you offer.
Currently, so we started really as a legal directory consultancy, and it was me and my partner, my former partner. And then when she left, I really started hiring a lot of people, and currently we have 35 lawyers in our team. So I only hire lawyers because I think it's easier in some sense to help lawyers understand what marketing is, kind of train them towards the goals that we have in our company, be that legal directory work, be it social media. So in terms of services, we do legal directory work, we do social media, we do branding, we do RFPs, presentations, etc. But I still think it's easier to kind of teach a lawyer what marketing is, and give them courses, even invest in post-grad schooling for them, which is something we do at Harpa. I think currently there are like 5 people studying marketing at Harpa. It's easier to do that than kind of to teach the law to a marketeer, in my humble opinion. So I really want this, like the ethos is we want to really understand our clients. We don't work with anyone that isn't a law firm. So if you're a hospital or if you're a school or whatever, or maybe if you're a law school, we don't consider working with you. So the idea is we really understand what our clients are doing because we've been on their side, and that's how and why we can assist them, hopefully with a nice level of excellence.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I worked 8 years in the legal industry as a paralegal, and I know the nuances that and the different ways to approach a lawyer. So if you have somebody that's already been in that industry and knows how to talk to the audience, it's easier than somebody who doesn't necessarily know how to approach a law professor or an attorney, right? So it's a certain way to approach these professionals. So you said that you worked at Chambers and Partners, the world's leading legal ranking and insights intelligence company. So let's just focus the episode on that, and talk some of the best practices for Chambers submissions, since that's something your agency specifically focuses on. So can you tell me, how important is Chambers rankings for law firms in today's competitive landscape? And is it only for big law firms, or can small law firms get into the game as well?
Great. So to be honest, I think the importance of a ranking, be it a Chambers ranking, a Legal 500 rankings, there are other rankings, in the US, there are best lawyers, there are sector-specific lawyers, rankings like IFLR, IP stars, there's a whole gamma of possibilities. But I think the greatest value is that it is a third-party, neutral assessment of the quality of the work that you do. I think the greatest value is for you to, put this information on your website, on your RFPs, on your presentations, for you to maybe put those rankings on social media, etc. I think that's where the real value is. I'm not, and this is, something, my particular opinion, I'm not 100% sure that, clients or potential clients access these websites on a daily basis to select the law firms they're going to work with. I mean, I could be wrong. There's not a lot of data on it. I have data on how many people access the websites on a monthly basis. So we're talking about around 300,000 people worldwide accessing Chambers Legal 500 websites per month. I think the majority of the people that access these websites are other lawyers. So one thing that can come off of that is, finding partners in other jurisdictions. So do you have a client that you need to refer to in another jurisdiction, you want to find strategic partners, etc. I think that can be useful. To think that, thousands of clients are going to rain down from the sky just because you got a ranking, I'm a bit skeptical about that, and I work in this field. So I think the value is a bit more related to how you market your rankings.
Yeah, it's all about that social proof when it comes to finding a lawyer. So that really helps to put that on your website to show, hey, we've been selected. It's prestigious, and you can trust us. This big organization trusted us. You can trust us as well. So that'll help them take the next step in the sign-on process.
Exactly, and I mean, to be honest, I've had many clients face this, where they're participating in a bids or something like that, for a big company, be it a company that's Fortune 500 or that's in the stock market or something like that. And in those cases, these companies do have statutory requirements that if we're hiring outside of our jurisdiction, we need to have a ranked company, a ranked law firm on the other side. So that does exist, and I've seen many cases of it. So I think that is an important and intrinsic value to having a ranking.
So if somebody's never done a chamber submissions before, can you walk us through the chamber submissions process from a perspective of a legal marketer? What are the key steps involved?
Perfect. So really, there are three steps or at least three pillars to obtaining a ranking. You need to send in a submission, and I'll explain what that is. You need to send in a referee list, and I'll explain what that is. And you need some peer recognition that you will obtain from other ranked lawyers and law firms in that market. So, and this is divided per practice area. So what do you need to do if you want to be ranked in tax law in Philadelphia? You need to send in a submission which will showcase the 20 most relevant cases you had in tax law in Philadelphia in the past 12 months. Now, you could be aiming for a regional ranking, so a ranking in Philadelphia. You could be aiming for a nationwide ranking, so a US nationwide ranking in tax law. Or you could be aiming even for a global ranking, so being one of the best global law firms around the world. And I think it requires some assessments and some genuine assessments of where you are now, where your cases are now, how complex are the cases that you're handling, in order for you to kind of gauge what you should be submitting to. And my inclination and my tip is always look at the rankings, see if the other ranked law firms are law firms that you know or that you come across with, or that you think that the cases that you handle are at their level. I think that is something that's, particularly relevant, important for you to kind of understand if you have a real shot at it. But basically, sending a submission in means sending the 20 best cases you've had in that practice area in the past 12 months. Then the referee list is going to be a list of 12, hopefully clients, 12, 20, hopefully clients that can talk about the work you've developed in the past 12 months. Now, these people don't necessarily need to be clients. They can be other stakeholders. So they can be, for example, say you're applying for public law, they could be public regulators. Say you're applying for a contentious practice, so litigation, they could also be judges, or they could be members of other law firms you've worked together with in a case. So basically, the referee list is a list of individuals that will be able to refer the quality of your work to the legal directories. Directories really value clients here, but they also accept other types of individuals. And then third is getting a little bit of peer feedback or peer validation that your firm or you yourself as an individual lawyer is known or are known, your firm is known, or you as a lawyer or both of you are known within this field. And there is a shortcut to that, which is, so how the process will normally work is, in the first year, you'll send in a good submission, you'll send in a good referee list. Chambers will talk to the referees, they'll see, okay, you're handling interesting cases for interesting clients. They'll look at your submission, they'll say, okay, there are interesting cases here. And then the next year, they're going to say, okay, you possibly have potential to enter the rankings. So in the following year, they're going to start asking about you to the market. Now, this can take 1 year, this can take 2 years, this can take 3 years, until Chambers thinks, okay, you actually have potential. We're going to ask the market about you. So one way to kind of shortcut this is look at the rankings, see if you know any of the ranked lawyers, see if you have a good relationship with them, and if so, include these ranked lawyers in your referee list. Not many of them. I'd say maybe, if we have 20 names in the referee list, I'd say five lawyers tops, maybe less, 3. Yeah. But if these are well-known lawyers, well-ranked lawyers, and these people are already going to start talking about you, this can help shortcut your rankings, because this third aspect, this peer recognition, is going to be there from the get-go. So a lot of people pay a lot of money for these insights, but here we are.
Wow, that is an extensive process. I'm sure that a lot of people, when they hear that, they may give up from the start. They don't even want to participate in this. So what are some of the challenges that law firms typically encounter during the submissions process, and how do you help them overcome these challenges and obstacles?
Perfect. So I think the main challenge is not getting frustrated and believing and understanding that this is a mid to long-term game. I mean, the probability that you're going to get ranked in the first year is very low, unless you are, a former high court judge that just left and built his or her law firm, and you're very well known, you're leading cases, etc. You're not going to get ranked in the first year. So it does take time. I mean, 2 years is the bare minimum. It's probably more than that. So consistency is key. From the perspective of a legal marketeer, a really tough thing is to get lawyers to sit down and write down their most relevant cases. So explaining to them the importance of taking this time and kind of providing you with the information you need to write the case up is very important. And I think the gap we tend to get here is they really want the results, they really want to get a ranking, but understandably it's hard for them to take time to do this because they're handling complex cases, they're talking to their clients, they've got tons of other priorities in their life. So I think there are a few ways that we can assist lawyers with this work. One is, if you're an in-house marketeer, maybe take some time to sit down with that lawyer, arrange a call, arrange a meeting, 1 hour, sit down with that person and kind of write down 5, 10, whatever most important cases that particular partner had in that field, and then help him write those cases up. And if you have a legal background, you'll probably have more success in assisting them by writing the cases.
Yes, and they always fall under the pressure of those billable hours, right? And then making time to do the submission, it's like, okay, what's more important? Where's the ROI coming from? Is it coming from the cases or is it coming from the submission? So having a way to persuade them and giving them a vision of what could happen and how positively that submission or that ranking could affect the firm in the long run is also very important as you approach a lawyer about helping you with that. Now, you have to get 20 cases, and I'm sure that some of these cases and some of these clients may not always be willing to cooperate and want their case out there. So can you share some effective strategies for collecting and presenting impactful case studies that would impress chambers researchers?
Yeah, so one thing that's relevant to point out is, one, you can send all the information in as confidential, at least in the submission. So, of course, you are still divulging this information to a third party, right? And they don't sign any NDAs, but there are no cases of publications of confidential information that had been placed as confidential in the submission and was published. So there are no cases of that. And there are no cases of data breaches or data leaks, but that's always a risk we have to keep in mind. So one thing is, send all the information in as confidential if you're afraid that anything might be published or anything like that. That won't affect your rankings. You can still be ranked tier 1 even if you send all your information in as confidential. A second strategy is, you can omit clients' names. So there are basically two options, right? You give the name of the client. So let's say you work for, I don't know, Ford or Volkswagen or whatever it is. You can put the client name and then give the least amount of detail about the case. Just say, we assisted them with a highly complex M&A worth a lot of money. And that won't get you very far because the researcher will not be able to understand the relevance of the case. Or you can omit the client name. So you can say, large international car manufacturing company based in Germany or based in the US, or not even give the country if you're not comfortable with that, but then explain, this was a very complex M&A involving two of the main competitors in the field, very high value case, etc., etc. So there is a way, so between giving more details about the case, but omitting the name of the client, and keeping the name of the client and giving very few details about the case, give more details about the case. Just one final point in relation to this. Most of the researchers normally are not jurists. So they're not lawyers. They didn't study law. They're normally journalists or sometimes historians or sometimes, geographers, or they studied languages at university. So that's why they're researching a specific country. Maybe they studied Spanish at Cambridge, or they studied Germany at LSE. They live in London and then they start researching, law in Germany or law in, Latin America. So the crucial aspect is, how do we write a case in a way that's engaging and interesting to someone that's a non-jurist and essentially a journalist?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. You want to speak, you want to maybe cut the legal lingo out a little bit and make it more understandable for the common folk out there. So we talked about the importance of peer validation. How important is client feedback in the chamber submissions process, and how does chambers effectively collect and incorporate this feedback in their research?
Perfect. So client feedback is very important. If you're trying to obtain a ranking for the first time, it's even more important because the volume of submissions information that Chambers receives these days is very high. So I used to research, for example, corporate M&A in one of the largest jurisdictions that Chambers has, and we would receive like 250 submissions for I don't know, 40, 50 ranked law firms. So it was virtually impossible for me to analyze 250 submissions. So one thing that's kind of the first uh, cuts, I don't know how to say this, but the first validation that Chambers will look for is, are there clients talking about this law firm, talking about this lawyer, and are these relevant clients? So the first cutoff point is, having good referees talking about you. That's kind of the way that Chambers will light a green light and then say, oh, this is an interesting law firm. Let's look at their submission. So yeah, you can have an amazing submission. If no referees talk about you, it's very hard to get that first green light lit up. Also, referees are kind of neutral parties in some sense. So don't think that all your clients are going to speak well about you. I mean, a lot of clients say, they're good at this, but they're bad at that. They lost a deadline here, but they managed to close the case in the end. Or they do a lot of comparative analysis as well. So in this sector in tax law, if you mentioned if your referee is a big bank, for example, they might say, oh, we work with these 3 law firms. These guys are better at mass cases which aren't so complex. These guys are very strategic. We hire them for the most complex cases. So clients do give genuine feedback, and this ability to cross-analyze firms is something that Chambers values a lot because it helps them analyze which type of firms do what type of work. So yeah, referees are crucial, man. So choosing good referees is essential. And my best tip here is submissions and referee lists are separate documents. So in the submissions, we're going to put our best cases, our most interesting cases, our most high value cases, complex cases, etc. In our referee list, we're going to choose the people that are going to speak well of us, the people that are going to, take the time to speak of us, people that like us, like our work, etc.
Yeah, it's the same spiel when you go about online reviews. You're right. You're not going to ask your disgruntled client to leave an online review. Ask the one who's really happy. So you pick those out to make sure ahead of time that you get a favorable outcome there. So a lot of my listeners are small to medium-sized law firm owners. What tips would you give a law firm submitting to Chambers for the first time?
Yeah, I think the first thing you should do is look at the rankings that are pertinent to you. So if you're a small law firm in Florida, go look at the local Florida ranking in your practice area and think about the type of work that you do most and that is most complex. So I mean, I have lots of lawyers that will come to me and say, I do everything. I do from, corporate structuring to tax structuring, but I also get, criminal law cases. And I mean, it's very hard, if not impossible, to be ranked these days in multiple different areas of law. Chambers really wants to narrow down who are the most specialized lawyers in each practice area. So my tip is, try to understand what is your niche, even if you work with more than one type of law, which kind of is inevitable in smaller jurisdictions or in smaller law firms. But what you want to do is kind of market yourself at least 4 chambers or 2 chambers or before chambers as a specialist in a specific field. So what you want to do is kind of understand what your most complex cases were in the past 12 months And are these going to continue being your most complex, interesting cases in the future? And then look at the rankings. I mean, do you know people that are ranked there? Do you know the law firms that are ranked there? Do you see them frequently or not? And that's kind of going to help you gauge if you have a shot at that ranking or not.
Mhm.
And maybe if you don't have a shot at Chambers, do you have a shot at Legal 500? If not, do you have a shot at IFLR? And kind of go through the list, because there are different rankings that are more accessible than others, and these rankings are decent, reasonable rankings that do serious work. So
Yeah.
that's my recommendation.
No, that makes a lot of sense, and thank you for sharing that. Can you share one example of how Chambers rankings has positively impacted a law firm that you have worked with? You don't have to give the name, just an example.
Yeah, I'd never give a name. So we have quite a few examples. We have one law firm, specifically one lawyer, who's very close to us, and she, has a very interesting boutique focused on IP and fashion law, and it's a very interesting sector. And after she got her, I'm not sure if it's a band 1 or band 2 ranking, but now she's doing congresses all around the world. She's connecting with lawyers all around the world. She was just recently in Paris for a very interesting congress. So that really propelled her into a more international scene that has been very interesting for her. And just another example that I have, it's a small regional firm, and they were participating in a bid to work for a very large international US-based tech company, and they couldn't get to the second phase of the bid because they didn't have a ranking. And then they got a ranking, and they called them and said, guys, we got the ranking. And then they went all the way through to the final phase of the bid. So it was a real concrete example of how getting the ranking moved them forward in the possibility of working for a very large international client. So those are just two examples off the top of my head.
Yeah, sometimes the ranking can be a key to unlock that, like you just said, to get you to the next level. So you never know. Might as well just.
Curiously, you know why they didn't get the bids? Because they didn't have a DNI policy in place. So that's the next step that they're doing now. So it was quite curious. I mean, the client was happy with, the type of work they were able to develop, etc. But I think, large companies are ever more considerate about diversity and inclusion matters, etc. And they didn't get the bid because of that. So we ended up helping them with setting that up. So I think it's an interesting way the field is also evolving. ESG topics and D&I topics are ever more present.
Yeah, it's everywhere. So you got to be with the times.
Yeah.
What is one important lesson that you have learned over the course of your legal marketing career that's vital to those wanting to get better at chamber submissions?
Strategy. I'd say strategy is very important. So let's say you have an M&A practice and you have 10 lawyers in your 10 partners in your M&A practice, and you want to get ranked. If you get a referee list and you divide it equally amongst these 10 partners, you're going to have 2 referees per partner. An average response rate in a referee list is 50% response rate if we send all the referees an email when the research starts, reminding them that they're going to be contacted by chambers and asking them a favor to please participate, etc. Then during the research, we remind them again that the research has started, that it would be great for them to help us, etc. If we do all that, we select good referees. We don't choose, CEOs, presidents, directors, etc., because these people are not usually available. Then we do all this follow-up, etc. If we do a good job, we get 50% response rates. If we do an amazing job, we'll get 60, 70% response rates. It's very rare. I've never seen anything above that except one case when I was a researcher, because the lawyers were responding on behalf of the clients and they got kicked off the chamber's research because that's completely illegal in terms of the research process. So please don't ever respond on behalf of your clients. But point being that if we do a good job, we're going to get a 50% response rate. If we're dividing a list amongst 10 lawyers or 10 or 10 partners, that means 1 response per partner, which means we're not going to get anyone standing out in the eyes of chambers. So really, we need to be as strategic as possible. In the first 2 years, if we can focus on 1 partner, 2 partners, maybe 3 partners, I'd say 4, 5 partners is the most we should focus on. But 4 really is a nice number, because then we got 5 names per partner. 50% rate means at least 2 or 3 comments per partner. At least someone is going to be highlighted. But the more we can be strategic, I mean, if we're choosing 2 names, then we have 10 names, which means 5 responses, which means 2 people really stand out. So part of always my initial conversation with the law firms is, 1, let's be strategic in terms of the practice areas we're aiming for. Okay, you work with 10 areas of law, but where do you really stand out? Is it tax? Is it data? Is it tech? Is it, environmental law? It's great. We want to be ranked everywhere, but we need to focus because it takes time, it takes money, it takes investment from, the time of the lawyers, the time of the marketeers. If you're hiring a consultant, you're also paying for that. So be strategic in terms of the practice areas you're aiming for, and be strategic in terms of the partners you're aiming to get ranked initially, and then have a midterm, long-term strategy to start including more names after you get some recognition for the first lawyers you're trying to get ranked.
That is perfect advice, man. Thanks so much for sharing that. This has been such a rich episode. It's going to be a great resource for lawyers, legal marketers who want to get into the game of chamber submissions. What are some other resources you would suggest them studying on or reading or watching?
Perfect. So the first I'd say is, go on our website. We have a little do's and don'ts document you can download if you want. It's very simple, 20 pages, gives great tips. But I'd say more than that, go to the legal directory's websites. I mean, go to chambers, read their practice area definitions. So if you want to get ranked in tax, read what chambers considers to be tax law in the USA. Understand what types of cases you can submit and which cases you shouldn't submit. I mean, Legal 500, whatever directory you're going for, they do have material there. They have webinars you can watch. There is information out there that can help you educate yourself. So I'd say, not all these websites are super user friendly. Sometimes you got to kind of get into the nitty gritty there, but I mean, they are valuable resources, and they will help you navigate the process.
Awesome. So how can people get in touch with you to learn more about you, about chamber submissions, or Harpa Legal Marketing?
So just jot down our name on Google. We should appear because we should have decent SEO, but if not, our website is harpamarketing.com. My email is marco@harpamarketing.com. And yeah, just find me on LinkedIn as well, Marco Guasti. I mean, I'm always eager to chat. I frequently respond to queries regardless of, having contractual relationships with individuals or not. I mean, I love to help and have conversations, so I'm a pretty accessible human being.
Awesome. And I'll tag you in the recap so people can find you right away on LinkedIn to connect with you there and follow you. Marco, that was such a rich episode. I thank you so much for your insights and for sharing your valuable information with the audience. And I just thank you for that. And I hope you have a great day, my friend.
Thanks, Chris. I mean, thanks for the invite. It was really great chatting. And if you ever need anything, I mean, I'm always here. If you ever have any questions, just reach out.
Much appreciated. Okay, you have a good day now.
Thanks. Bye-bye.